Hey y'all, Chelsea and Danny here.
Enjoy this episode of Today's Homeowner here on YouTube.
Today's Homeowner with Danny Lipford. Real projects for real homeowners with real solutions. Information and inspiration on improving your home from professional remodeler Danny Lipford.
Welcome to the show this week. You know, you hear a lot about curb appeal and how important it is when you're selling your home. Well, naturally, you want to get your house in the best shape possible before you put it on the market, but also you want it to look good when people are driving by in the neighborhood. Now, this house is about to undergo a very drastic change in its curb appeal by the building of a very unique front facade. Now, this will be a little more drastic than most homeowners will consider, but it'll be a neat project to follow along this week. Now, also, we'll look at several other things that you can do to your home that can make a big difference without spending a lot of money. Now, you're about to see a huge change in this house, and along the way, hopefully discover a few things you can use around your place. Stay with us. Welcome back to the show. I told you a big change was coming to the front of this house, and the work is well underway. The original contemporary roof line has already been obscured by the new, more classic facade that we're building. Now, I admit, it looks a little more like a billboard than anything else at this point, and a few of the neighbors that have been driving by are really curious as to exactly what's taking place here. Now, what they don't know is the homeowner spent a lot of time with an architect to come up with this design because they never were really happy with the way the front of the house looked. With the plans, really addressed a lot of those concerns. Now, since you know the contractor on this job, I'll give you a sneak peek of exactly what the neighbors are really wanting to know. What will it look like? Now, the front facade will have an archway cut into it. You can see kind of the lazy arch that'll be centered right over the front doors. And the panels that you see will be created by using a signboard material with wood overlaid to create each one of the nice little panels. Here at the top will be a very large piece of crown molding that will be created with stucco. Then a beam will carry from this point all the way over to a side position here where we have panels above supported by a column. Now, speaking of the columns, each one of these columns will be stone and will weigh around 900 pounds. Now, the beams that I mentioned earlier are already in place, tying into the facade here, and they're double LVL beams, which is a laminated veneer lumber. Bolts are already in place and already tied into the wall section here on the end that's covered with the black building felt. Now, later, panels will be built just like we're building on the new facade. Now, here next to it is a little column pedestal that will be covering with limestone. Positioning the stone column right on top will really help give that classic look the homeowners wanted. Now, this column's non-load bearing, just basically cosmetic. The other columns are carrying a lot of weight. Now, with all of our framing, the heavy beams, the plywood, signboard, stucco means that's a heavy structure that has to be supported by our 4 columns. Now, one of the stone columns will be positioned here, one over on that side, and 2 on the other side. Also, the area where the columns will sit will also have the limestone we talked about earlier. So with the stone column sitting on that limestone, boy, that's a great look. Now, on the ceiling area, we're going to raise it as high as we can. On this side, come across. On this side, come across, and right in the middle, bump it up about 14 inches and use the beadboard running in this direction. Now, when you walk up to this house, it's going to be a real nice feeling and very inviting when you knock on the door. It's really improving the curb appeal, but now the homeowners here are going to stay here a while, so they're not really concerned about the resale value of this home. But most of the time, you need to be very aware of the curb appeal and how it'll affect selling your home if you decide to do so. Now, recently, we spoke with someone that really knows a lot about the importance of curb appeal.
Danny, this is a great example of good curb appeal.
Boy, these homeowners are really taking good care of this house, Sandy. I'm with Sandy Frost, who's been a realtor for a number of years, and how important is curb appeal when you're really trying to sell your home?
Danny, I think it's the most important thing. Most home buyers want to drive by a house before they commit themselves to an appointment. And if they like it from the outside, they find it attractive and appealing, and it invites them in, then usually they'll want to see the inside.
Yeah, I can see where if you drove by and the house was in somewhat of disrepair, it'd be a bit of a hurdle in getting you to the inside.
Absolutely.
Okay, now I know you list a lot of houses for a lot of homeowners. What do you tell them that they really have to do in order to raise that curb appeal a little bit?
Well, we take a look at the outside to see if it needs to be pressure washed or painted. We look at the trim for the same reason. We also take a look at the front door, usually because most homeowners don't use their front door.
That's true.
They'll need a fresh coat of paint or a fresh coat of stain.
Uh-huh.
We also think about adding a little contrast when we do that color, like for example here.
Yeah, that's a perfect color too. Kind of warms it up a little bit, makes it kind of a welcoming to get you inside. So, okay. What about landscaping? How important is landscaping? Obviously, they've taken good care of their lawn here, but does that play into the decision?
Yeah, it's real important that you trim the bushes back so they look real neat, maybe add a little bit of color, have the grass clipped and trimmed.
Okay.
It's real important.
Now, also, a lot of times people add shutters to their home. Of course, this home's really not one that probably would, benefit from that because it'd be so hard to work them around the bay window. But as a general rule, do you think shutters really help out a home?
Yeah, absolutely, because it adds some of that color contrast that adds so much to curb appeal.
Okay. Well, Sandy, thanks a lot. And when we come back after this next segment, we're going to talk more about shutters, show you some shutters that are actually functional, as well as improving the home's curb appeal. Stay with us. Well, you can see this front facade change-up is really taking place. And the ceiling area that I mentioned before, the flat on this side, flat on this side, and then a more elevated flat spot right here in the middle. But the most significant change is the archway that's been created by the carpenters that will really give it a nice grand entryway right on into the house. Now, the carpenters are in the process now of casing the beams that extend out on each side to give it a nice finished appearance. Now, this is a big facade change-up and something that's really going to drastically affect the curb appeal of this home, but a lot of homeowners take a more subtle approach to that by adding shutters to the home. Really can make a difference. Now, when the house was originally built, the homeowners, right at the last minute, decided to have the carpenters build these panel shutters that add a lot to the house. And in the old days, of course, shutters really served a purpose to protect the windows in case of storms. Those type of shutters are still available today. Now, even though this house is fairly new and has fairly good curb appeal, it still can be improved by the installation of exterior shutters. And in this case, the shutters will provide a little extra protection during those stormy days.
Okay, Jimmy, that looks good. Let's go ahead and start hanging these shutters.
Now, I'm with John Colburn, whose company handles a lot of shutters for a lot of homeowners. Now, about these homeowners, pretty good looking house, but they needed a little something extra. What did they decide on their shutters?
Okay, in this case, the owner decided on a plantation louvered type shutter, as we're installing at the very moment.
Now, what type of material do you have on this? It's not wood.
I'm glad you asked. This is a CPVC. This is a very new, on the market, high-tech material. And the shutter carries a lifetime warranty on the shutter, 10 years on the paint, getting out of maintenance.
Now, I know everybody's trying to avoid as much maintenance as possible, but I bet you have a few customers that just have to have those wood shutters.
We have them, and but as time has gone, our wood shutter business has switched over to this style of shutter. Architects, homeowners are all wanting something that's not a lot of maintenance.
Especially you have a number of shutters, I understand, made out of other materials. It's really hard to tell they're not wood.
Well, the Western red cedar is a top quality wood product that can stand up for some time outside. However, in all cases, our shutters are made to look like wood shutters. We have a fiberglass shutter with a louver blade that's called a true louver. Very heavy, heavy duty, looks exactly like wood. We have raised panels. The panel style can be of any design. 2 sections, 3 sections. We have the beadboard, the old country style look.
Sure.
So, and they all look identically as if they were wood shutters.
I see.
So,
yeah. Really helps a lot in adding to
Right.
the look of the house. Now, what about as far as the function of this, having the spline and the louvers that work? Do most of the shutters you install have this function?
no, this is trying to emulate the old day, where people use this for ventilation, for privacy, for light control, when they didn't have air conditioning. But everybody has their own taste.
Sure.
Some people like other styles.
Right.
In this case, it was the plantation.
That works
was
good. And then, of course, for any of those storms that may come around, I understand they fold together, and then what do you have? I see the hardware already in place.
Right. There's a shutter lock that slides across and locks that shutter in the closed position.
Yeah, well, that's great. It really does. But you know, when they're back like this, which of course they would be the majority of the time, and you have your little spring hooks here on them, you know, it really does improve the curb appeal of this house. Well, a little progress out on this project with the stone columns being placed. Now, the bottom 2 sections are all in place on all 6 columns, and the last column section is being put in place now. Also, our stucco contractor's out on the job taking care of some of the finishing touches on the large cove molding that's right at the top of the facade, as well as the 2 wings we have on each side of this project. Also, the painter will be back out very soon to put the final color scheme on this whole front facade change-up. Now, one thing we didn't have to change are the front doors, but there's nothing that defines the curb appeal of a home more than a really nice front door. Now, when you're choosing the right front door for your home, there's several things you need to consider before you head out to the door showroom. First of all, take your tape measure and see just how much space you have available on the front of your house. You need to measure your width as well as the height, and if you have enough height, you may consider installing a transom like we have over this door unit. Now, this is called an elliptical shaped transom with a starburst design as far as the light pattern. It's also available in a circle head or a more traditional rectangular transom. Either way, any of these styles are a great way to allow natural light into the home. Now, another way is to install side lights. Now, this is a traditional 1-foot wide side lights available in different sizes, and if you want to block a little bit of the visibility into the home but still allow the light in, then you can go with obscure glass here that prevents anyone from seeing what's happening inside the home. But if you simply just don't have enough room for side lights or transoms, then you can still get natural light into your home with glass being installed in the door itself. Now, this is almost endless, the opportunities you have here. You can have glass just in the upper section, which still allows a good bit of privacy, or you can go with the popular oval design or several other light designs that are available for doors. Now, one other consideration is how your house is constructed. Now, if you have a porch area or a sufficient overhang over your front door, a wood door might be just the thing. But if it's out in the elements a bit and the rain and the snow and the wind are constantly hitting that door, the wood door will not look very good for very long and simply might just not hold up at all. So you may have to consider either a fiberglass or a metal door. Now, this door looks like wood, but actually it's a metal skin that's filled with foam insulation, which makes it a great insulator from the outside elements. But if you choose a metal door, you're going to have to plan on painting the door because it doesn't stain well at all. But it's very inexpensive. Now, the door we looked at earlier was a solid mahogany door, $750. This one, $150. But if you want a door that's very durable and still have the ability to stain it, then you might consider what a lot of people are choosing these days, a fiberglass door. You can see it actually has the wood grain that people like so much in the wood doors, but you can stain this with your favorite color stain with a gel coat stain. Now, gel coat stain's a little tricky to apply, but with a little practice, it'll look just like the expensive mahogany door. And here, you're only going to spend about $250. Now, stay with us. In just a minute, we'll show you the completion of the project we've been following along this week. Wow, what a difference that renovation made on this home. If you remember how the house looked at the start of the show, you'll remember it was a long ranch-style house that really needed a lot of updating, not only on the front of the house, but also on all of the landscaping. You can see we've taken care of that. Now, I realize this is probably a little more of an ambitious project than many homeowners will consider, but hopefully this week we've been able to share some ideas with you that can help you when you're ready to improve your home's curb appeal. I'm Danny Lipford, and hope to see you next week.
It's time to pick up a few tricks of the trade from Danny and home repair expert Joe Truini in this week's Simple Solution.
Well, Joe, you're really making the baby bed look a lot better here.
Yeah, thanks, Danny. I was just applying a fresh coat of varnish. And as you know, whenever you're painting or refinishing a project that has lots of different parts, it could take forever if you painted one side, wait for it to dry, and then flip it over and do the other side.
Right.
So to speed up the process, what I've done here is I used the bolts that actually hold the frame together to suspend the piece between two sawhorses.
Now, I've tried the same thing with shutters or doors, just using a nail driving in to there and kind of accomplish the same thing.
You could use nails. But I had the hardware, so I thought I'd use them.
That's great.
And what it allows you to do is then flip it over and paint the other side or varnish it, which I did earlier today. So then you can give me a hand here. You just hang it right from those strings tied to the joist.
That's great. That's a lot better, particularly with varnish. You're not having to worry about so much dust from your shop settling down on it if it was flat on sawhorses.
And it allows you to move right on to the next piece. And here's the rail that didn't have any bolt holes in it. So I just, as you mentioned earlier, I just took some finishing nails and tacked them in.
Perfect.
And allows me to varnish it.
Okay.
And then when it's dry, you can just take a pair of needle nose pliers and bend a hook in it. And then hang it up. I'll show you. These are some bed rails I did yesterday. And again, I used the needle nose pliers just to bend the hook in the nail and then hang it from the string. And again, it's out of the way and it stays pretty much dust free.
That's perfect. And also, I guess since it's up at eye level, you can really see if there's any little areas that you missed or maybe some runs, which can happen with varnish.
Oh, absolutely. And then you just come back with the brush and touch it right up.
Yeah, that's great.
Now let's join Danny at the Home Center to check out this week's best new product.
Over the last few years, laminate floors and pre-finished hardwood floors have become very popular. Now, several of the floor manufacturers have started making it a little easier for you to install their product yourself. Now, let me show you what I mean. Pergo has produced what they call Presto Flooring, which is a laminate floor, has a unique interlocking joint system to where you're able to line up the panels when you're installing them on the floor, then push down on it to simply lock it into place. No glues necessary and save you about 50% of the time if you had to glue them yourself. Now, when you're installing a laminate floor like this, normally you would install first an underlayment. Now, this is a foam underlayment, very thin, and you simply put that down on the floor and it really quietens the sound of the floor as you walk across it. Then you simply put that down, push it down, and you're ready to use the floor. Now, another company that's done very well in making it a little easier for you to install their product is Bruce. Now, this Bruce flooring is of one of many different stain colors, but what makes this very easy to install are the little foam strips, glue down strips right on the back. You peel off this, stick it right to either wood or concrete. That's all there is to it. And of course, with it being pre-finished, you're ready to walk on it. Now, both of these floors will run somewhere between $3 and $4 per square foot for the materials, and both make good-looking floors.
Now let's go outside for Around the Yard with Danny and lawn and garden expert Barbara Katz.
Now, Barbara, I don't know a lot about lawn and garden things, but I know you can't grow plants in soil like this. I have a feeling I'm about to learn a little bit about soil here.
Well, Danny, I just thought I'd give you a couple examples. This is what you call clay, and if you grab a handful of it and squeeze really tight, you're going to find when you open your hand, it's just a solid clump, and it doesn't budge.
I can see where plants wouldn't like that at all.
Exactly. Now this one over here, which is sandy, you know, it's just going to run right straight through your fingers. Whereas this is what we call loam, and loam is a really nice balance of both sand and clay, but also a lot of organic material.
Yeah, I can see where plants would like that a lot more. But if you have an area in your yard that's you're having a hard time growing things, how can you figure out which one of these you may have?
Well, it's not a precise science, but you're probably going to dig a hole and fill it with water and just monitor that hole. If the water drains through very, very quickly, then you probably got sandy soil. If it sits in there for hours and hours, then you've got clay. Either way, you're going to have to deal with them because they both need humus.
Okay, now humus, that can be from your compost bin, or you can actually
Exactly.
buy that at the home center.
You can, and the beauty of it is that what it does for sandy soil is it allows it to retain some of the moisture. But with the clay, it actually breaks it up and increases its drainage. So any way you cut it, it's a win-win situation. The humus works for both types of soil.
Hey, thanks for watching this episode of Today's Homeowner. And don't forget to comment, like, and hit the bell icon so that we can notify you when new videos are posted.
And don't go anywhere, click around and continue the home improving fun.